Let's Talk Small Business, the real talk, no BS podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to grow and actually enjoy the ride. I'm Mitchell Wilson. Let's get into it. Nick Schryvers, welcome to Let's Talk Business. It's a pleasure to have you here. Before we get into it, I just need to say a big congratulations. I believe you've just sold your house.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it came through today.
Yeah.
So it's been probably about 6 months of back and forth and roller coastering emotions, as I'm sure you would know. But yeah, got the sold sticker going on as we speak, actually.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, we were actually meant to catch up on this podcast, I guess, a few weeks ago, but we got caught up, or you got caught up in the Australasian, sort of the V6 Australasian barista championship. So we're going to hear a lot about that and how exciting that was. But of course, you're here today because you are a business owner of Victus Coffee and Eatery.
Yep.
Nick, I'd love to hear about where your business journey started, how we've come to be, and I'm sure we'll find some lessons along the way. So I believe, to be fair, I was sitting in a coffee shop that I had some ownership in. This is when I first met you, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know how long it was. This cool dude came in wearing a leather jacket on his motorcycle, just sort of hanging out in the coffee shop. And I think that's where I said, "Oh, hey, what are you up to?" That's when we first met, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to get into F45. So yeah, my background, I think, before all of this, my first adult job, I moved to Auckland, packed everything in my van, moved out of Nelson when I was 21. I think the day after my 21st birthday, and I very early on in my journeys in Auckland found out I had a son on the way, and I thought I have to get an adult job, and I was fortunate enough. Having not worked hospitality at that time, I was fortunate enough to go for an interview at a coffee roaster. I just was curious about the business and the idea of it, and that was All Press Espresso. So if you've been around New Zealand coffee a long enough time, or cafes, you'll have a familiarity with them. They strive for excellence. They're a company that has been kind of active and I guess leading in a lot of ways in the New Zealand espresso scene for probably close to 40 years now.
They're a big player in the market, aren't they? Really, in terms of
they're a big player, yeah, and these days they're a big player internationally. But at the time when I started, it was about 2010, and it was a production job. It was essentially packing boxes, delivering coffee around Auckland City, and the job interview itself was with Mike Allpress. And, you know, within a few years, the company got much too big for him to spend time interviewing, box tapers. But at the time, you know, that was kind of his way of doing business, was being involved in the details, having a commitment to excellence and culture. So fortunately for me, they hired people that didn't necessarily have experience. A large part of that company was about bringing in skill. So part of his ethos was that you should hire based on character, because that's really hard to train, and skills, especially in an industry that's quite niche. You can train those skills. So I got this job in production. It was a few weeks of packing boxes, delivering coffee, and I went from instant coffee with milk and 2 sugars to working at the time in one of the leaders of espresso roasting in New Zealand, and had a very steep learning curve. Of knowing nothing about coffee to knowing a lot really fast. Within a few months, I had an opportunity in the team to kind of move into roasting, and I learned, I guess, the craft, the science, the art, so to speak, of coffee roasting.
Do you have a passion for coffee roasting now?
These days, it's changed, and I guess that's kind of what leads into Victus. I did my time coffee roasting, and then I kind of realized, as much as I had this huge passion for coffee, a bigger driver for me was the social connection. The hospitality was people, and when you've got your back turned to everyone and you're looking at a computer screen and you've got your hands on the beans, you don't have that people connection. So thankfully I had an amazing GM at the time and he kind of saw in me some leadership skills, and I guess a creative problem solving knack. And so he kind of started leading me in the kind of business management and sales and and had me kind of running a few smaller businesses. So I had a bit of a pivot in career within the coffee roasters, and then fast forward many years and many in between careers and children and moving back to Nelson, I found myself in Christchurch, and I'd left All Press, about 4 or 5 years prior, and I was there. My son was actually sick at the time, so he was getting some treatment, and I was living in Christchurch at Ronald McDonald House, and All Press dropped me a message and said, "Hey, if you need anything, pop down to our Christchurch store, and we'll look after you," which is great. It's the core of hospitality.
Yeah.
So I took their offer up, and when I walked in there, little did she know, but my wife was out the back, saw me walk in. She was working for All Press down there, and she said to her co-worker, she said, "Hey, introduce me to my future husband," as a joke.
Yeah.
We met, and I was very quickly, I found out that she ran this incredible food redistribution charity in Christchurch. She'd founded it on her own. She'd set it up. The idea being they take food from all of the cafes in Christchurch and Canterbury that is going to go to waste at the end of the day, or probably into staff tummies. And they had a whole team of volunteers that would go around. They would collect all this food. She had mustered up architects and designers and a church that had some land, and they put together this container that it looked so good. If you've ever seen the Kairos container, it actually won like a top 10 space in Christchurch at one point.
Wow.
And it was set up to feel nice. Beth's vision for Kairos was essentially hospitality that is relational and not transactional. So oftentimes when you have this soup kitchen idea or charity tied into hospitality, we put this kind of transactional worth on it. People have to justify where there's a need, and it's a little bit demeaning. It discourages a lot of people from engaging. By making it relational, it meant that anyone could come. There were homeless people. There were people with large families. There were travellers. There were students. It was right in the heart of Christchurch. There were people that were just going through tough times, and there were actually just lonely people who would come down a couple of nights a week, and they would. Some of them wouldn't even eat. They would just hang out with people. But Beth had kind of arranged some volunteers who their kind of core role was to talk to people. So that speaks a lot to kind of Beth's heart for people and hospitality.
So we need to give her a shout out because she's not here. She's busy looking after the kids, and you're here. But you're only one half of this team, aren't you?
Oh yeah, if even a half. I mean, really, she does. I just show up and I smile and I brew coffee. She's a huge part of this. So we met. I actually slid into her DMs because I think I had some frozen hams or turkeys at Ronald McDonald House that I needed to get rid of, and I went and volunteered at Kairos. And fast forward through that, my son got better. We moved up to Nelson. We got married, and I think really early on we actually both got a job working for Sublime Coffee Roasters here with Dan and Emma, who, it was a fantastic opportunity for us to stay in an industry we love, to kind of advance our careers. We moved through kind of management, sales and training and kind of the brew bar concept we helped in the early days. And it was a really good way for us to kind of look at our life as now a married couple and think, where's this going? Is it all about coffee for us? Is it all about roasting? And one of our early dreams was we wanted to set up a kind of community-focused cafe. So the idea being anyone can drink coffee anywhere. You can drink coffee at home, and you can drink it at home cheaper. And unless you really want to splurge on expensive equipment, you can drink it at home cheaper. You can drink it everywhere. You can make food at home and take it to work. So why do cafes exist? For us, we started coming with this idea of it's human experience. It's interacting with people. It's human connection. And so we kind of had no money, and we just had this idea that we would love to one day do our own cafe. I think we kind of had maybe slightly unrealistic ideas of how to start, which maybe a lot of people in business, if they look back on their journey, a lot of people would probably share that. Like, where do you start? And so for us, we kind of had always thought we'll take over a new site, we'll do a brand new fit out, and of course, in hindsight, like a modern cafe fit out, it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah.
And to justify getting a loan for that is huge, and to B, kind of find ways to squeeze the margins to pay that back is huge. So we were fortunate enough actually to meet some local cafe owners who I'd actually done some work for in the past at the kitchen, and they had done a really good job of setting up a modern space. Their kind of focus was around whole foods. One of their tags being, health through whole foods. And we got into a discussion with them when we heard that they were wanting to sell. And we were kind of fortunate enough to work out a direct deal with them, essentially to finance paying off the business.
Wow.
And
when you got into this business, I do need to ask there, Nick. Like, did you know the statistics of the likelihood of a cafe succeeding in this world?
No, pretty slim.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. Yeah, it's a tough industry, and I think we knew that early on. I sometimes have conversations with mates who, let's say, they run a business where it really doesn't look like they do all that much, and they're probably hanging out at the cafe. And I always have this challenge of like, why did we take on something with like tight margins? We are literally working for every dollar. There's no big sales fee. There's no big payout. It's just dollar at a time. Every customer, one at a time. But for us, it really comes down to, I think, that intersection of what you're passionate about. So for us being people, and I think a sense of kind of calling. For us, we wanted to make hospitality, customer focused again. I think oftentimes it becomes a kind of drudgery to it, or it becomes kind of a same old. And at the time, we felt like Nelson kind of needed something fresh in that space. And so we launched out with Victus, and we wanted something that was fresh. We wanted something that was modern. We wanted a cafe space that felt competitive, and not just competitive in Nelson, but a space that would be competitive in any kind of major city. So yeah, we kind of set out early on to kind of have a key driver of Victus being excellent. So striving for doing the best we can with the resources that we have available.
So if we were to think back on your original vision that yourself and Beth had to where Victus is at today, because how long has it been open for?
Just over 3 years. So we're probably three and a half years in.
Congratulations, making 3 years. So that vision that you had originally, how close was that vision to where Victus is at today?
That's a great question. It's changed a lot, and I think a big part of our success has been the ability to cope with change and integrate change into our business as kind of a core thing. Probably the biggest shift that we had from our core vision was when we started. We had our one little toddler, and we've got my two older sons who live with us. And our toddler was about 1 at the time. So the idea was, she'll go into preschool. Beth and I will both work in the cafe. She has way more of the management background. She totally understands all of the kitchen. And for me, it was the front of house. It was the promotion, self-promotion. It was the coffee side of it. And so we kind of had this idea that we would work in it together. We've always worked together since we met. We've had the same jobs with the same companies. We just work well together. We complement each other. But then we got pregnant. So, a huge curveball in the big plan of our toddler's going to grow up and go to school.
Yeah.
And that pregnancy was incredibly tough. Beth had huge morning sickness. She had basically 9 months of not being able to do anything. And then after that, you've got a fresh baby and probably another year of recovery. So definitely our youngest has just gone on a year, and Beth's just, as our chef's taken 6 weeks of leave, Beth's just started back into working in the business side by side. And I say that kind of side by side because the whole time we've had pregnancy and a baby, she's literally been doing all of the back work, all of the book work, all of the number crunching, paying the staff, rostering, all of the HR. So it's a huge juggle to shift from we're just going to have more and more time as our child grows up to we're expanding our family. We need a bigger house. We need more time to spend with them because they're babies. So that's been a huge shift in how we run and operate the cafe. But in terms of the core values, we set those really early on. I think one of the best investments we've made was getting a really good accountant. So when we started, it was the typical, like, we went to Beth's dad and said, "Do you know any accountants?" Because they run a cafe in Amberley, the Nor'wester, and he said, "I use these people in Christchurch," and so we signed them up. And I won't name names, so I can just say what I like, I guess. They still send out a paper newsletter. They don't know how to reply to emails, essentially. You have to have a phone call to do anything. Everything's billed, and it's essentially you don't want to deal with them until the end of the year, and they'll do all your taxes.
If we were just to picture an accountant in our head, that's what we ultimately think from that old school day. Yeah.
It's what I thought they were as well. And it's the same, I guess it's like when you deal with a lawyer, you want to minimize the time because you know how quickly the costs can add up. And then we had a customer, Michael Parker, who had set up Crux Accounting, Mallet McLean, and now Go Accounting.
Yep.
And his wife is in business just down the road. They run a fantastic little retail shop. And we had coffee with him every day almost. He'd come in and he was just in the business. And he said, "Why don't we chat?" And so we chatted, and he kind of takes the approach of he personally feels invested in our business. He's involved in it. He's a customer almost every day. And he offers business advice, which for us, we had all the passion in the world. But to have someone come on board who we meet with quarterly, we have kind of an accountability session, we have goals, we have planning. It's just one of the best things we've invested in. And so early on in that relationship,
that is. So Go Accounting, Michael, good stuff.
One of the early things he said was like, set your values up, know what your core values are, write them down and put them on the wall. So we did that right in the early days of community, empathy, creativity, and excellence. And so they've always driven what we do rather than kind of coming up with new ideas and just hoping for the best. Everything gets filtered through not just, I guess, how we're feeling, but how the core values of the company is it aligned with that? Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, in your industry, staffing. They can be fairly transient. Look, you'd need to have tattoo. Is that a prerequisite to have a tattoo to work on the cabinet?
Piercings, beanie.
Hospitality. So how's that been for you in terms of managing staff, finding staff?
Yeah.
What's it like out there?
It's hard. It's really hard. I think that was actually the one thing about this whole journey into business that was probably the biggest, oh crap, I didn't realize that before. And it was like the first week we opened, because we took over an existing company, even though we rebranded everything, we changed just about everything. We painted the whole place and renovated in 3 days. We made a commitment at the time, 3 and a bit years ago. Things were pretty tough in the economy. I mean, they're worse now potentially, but we made a commitment to the existing staff that if they wanted their jobs, they would have a priority. So they reapplied for it, and we basically took on their whole team, which in hindsight maybe was a bit of a challenge because there was old culture, there was old ways of thinking, there was a lot we had to undo and kind of work through with that team. But we also brought on 2 kind of fresh staff members, one of whom is still with us today, and she's fantastic. But the big weight was we're responsible for paying these people. They've got families, they've got mortgages, they've got dreams and aspirations, and they've got a contract. I think a big thing we wanted to do when we started was break away from old ideas around hospitality. Hospitality traditionally was people work really bad hours. They just get told each week what they're working. So there's no reliability. 0-hour contracts were super common. Where no one had no one had guaranteed hours of work for years. That's how it ran, and people were kind of paid the minimum, and so we kind of decided early on if we want hospitality to thrive and grow, it needs to be sustainable, and the way we treat people needs to be sustainable, and it needs to be something that is focused. So you want staff retention because that's a really good indicator that you're looking after your people. But at the same time, someone actually said recently their little bit of advice was, actually you kind of want turnover because the wages get so high. If you're putting people's wages up every year, the turnover means, this is what the advice someone gave. Oh, the turnover means you can start people on new contracts. So the reality is, I think people look at the raw numbers of a coffee. They look at the kilo price of a coffee and they look at what milk costs and they say, oh, surely you get all of that cheaper because it's wholesale. The reality is our wholesale price for butter is on par, if not higher than the supermarket. So some things for sure you get wholesale rates, but the one thing that people often don't factor in is your wage costs. If you are service driven, if you want a team that focuses on people and cares about people, then you need to have enough people to do that. You need to have enough people so that the person at the till is able to take your order without going, hang on, I'm just going to do this. So kind of finding that balance over the last 3 years has been really tough. We run with a team at the moment. Geordie's been there since day one. I think we've got about 3 or 4 staff members who have been there since 2.5 years ago. So we've got really good staff retention, but we kind of run it in a way that actually works out that a lot of our staff are part-time at the moment. But it's really tricky. I think we kind of take the approach I mentioned earlier of we hire based on character and try and train the skill. Just because you need the team to gel, you need the team to be able to work hard and work fast. But staffing's it's brutal. Like it's really, really, really tough. Everyone wants their hospitality industries to do well. They want staff to be paid, but then when the prices go up on the products, they complain. And what they often don't see is that the reason they go up is that wages cost so much. I think the rate that I was on in my prior job, which bear in mind was, like a national sales and training role, I think just about all of our staff, including some 17-year-olds, are on a higher rate than that. And that's 3 years. So that shift has been massive into what you have to pay people just to kind of retain good people, attract good skill, and what people are willing to work for.
Okay. I really hate to bring this up, but we need to talk about the economy. It feels like in New Zealand, where we are now, for those listening internationally, New Zealand and Nelson, it feels like every second week there's a very established restaurant, cafe, someone in hospitality that is closing their doors. Be it the economy, be it council and roadworks or whatever it may be, staffing shortages, etc. Like we're past COVID now, we're in this economy that we're in. You've been here in the last 3 years doing this. How much of effect do you see it? Do you put it at the top of your mind, or you just go, you know what, this is what it is. Let's just roll with the punches. How does it work in your mind?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's really tough. I think we had our first 2 years. We got past that, and we said to ourselves, "Yay, we've made it past the 2-year mark." we've learnt so many lessons, and we've got a summer coming up, and we've just come out of a really tough winter, and we said, all right, this summer we've got a plan on paper. We need to put aside this amount to get through winter. And we worked our butts off. We did everything we could to kind of maximize trade over summer. But that's what we have to do, and minimize extra staff you're bringing on, minimize crossover in training, and try and make the best experience so people come back. We did all of that. We came to winter. We had a little kitty set aside, and bear in mind, we're still 3 years in. We started with nothing. We're still trying to build up those reserves. And we thought, okay, here we are. We're finally prepared for a winter. We've got a plan. And then, butter skyrockets. Silly little things. Your milk price goes up. Your coffee price goes up. Minimum wage goes up. All of these increases, they hit at the same time. And to be totally honest, each winter it feels a little bit like, one more thing. The amount of conversations where we go, we've just got to creep through to September or October or, whatever it is. I think building resilience into your business is really important. A lot of hospitality businesses run like a lot of, I guess, small middle income homes. It's kind of hand to mouth, week to week, money going in, money coming out. It's really hard to build up those reserves. But I think you also need to have a long-term view of it, getting your investment right. So spending where it matters. In hindsight, the thought of having done a really expensive fit out at the start would have absolutely crippled us. There's so much cool gear and tech that I would love to get, especially on the coffee front. But the reality is, it's a little bit like our home life. We're at home with a young family. You have to budget. Some weeks you cut your costs down. You have to kind of be really careful with where you're spending your money. So kind of long-term approach, but being tight and frugal in what you can be, and then spending generously with the rest where it matters. On customer experience, on staff training, on staff welfare, things that are going to have an impact on how the business presents. So that's kind of one thing we do. I think the other approach is going, not being tempted into chasing the bottom dollar. I think in hospitality for a really, really long time, the idea is, someone down the road's doing a cheaper coffee. We need to go cheaper than them. And it's kind of this consuming environment. And when I used to do sales, I'd set people up with cafes all the time. And the first conversation I would have is where do you want to sit in the market? Because there's always two spots open, one at the top and one at the bottom. You can be the new best thing, and you can try to stay there as long as you like by innovating and being creative and having these standards of excellence, or you can come in as the new bottom dog, the worst, or not the worst, but the cheapest, and you can buy everything in. And for us, one of the things that we kind of, I guess, hold on to is that the quality of experience, the quality of food and coffee, and the quality of the service is something that people want. As our money is worth less, generally people become more aware of how they spend it. And it's not necessarily going out to get a coffee. It's for some people, it's going out for that human connection. And so for us, sticking to our target market, knowing who that is, knowing who we're trying to not capture and corner, but who we're trying to tap into, and where the need is in our environment. I think that's kind of the key for the economic uncertainty. That said, things can change so quickly. Roadworks is a really good one. We've got this great plan to build a new Bridge Street in Nelson. They want to rip up the road. They have to change all the pipes and the water. And while they're doing it, why not, flatten the street and make it, less parking? And the reality is, the way that we often operate, I think, is everyone hates on the council because it's making their life tough. But if you look at the plans and if you look at how cities change and how we use them. When I was a kid, the Mitre 10 was in Nelson CBD.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
one major supermarket in New World at the time was in the CBD. It was in Montgomery Car Park. The reason you went to town was because literally everything you needed to buy, everything you needed for your home, everything you needed to clothe yourself, it was all in town. And I remember when the warehouse opened where it was, and it was like, wow, that's way out of town. The reality is now, there's big box stores, there's online, there's so many other ways that we go for the necessities. So the town becomes more about experience, interaction with other people. It becomes about, this third space of living. It's not our home, it's not our work necessarily, but it's where we meet and where we play. So we kind of, take the long-term approach of roadworks are tough. Like, we have to now start planning for maybe a year worth of roadworks right outside the door. One of the ways we've looked at kind of working through that, and we've talked to council about it, is setting up another site. Like, is there a way we can do pop-ups? Are there any council-owned sites? And we, I won't name where, but we went through this process earlier this year of trying to take on a kind of long, underutilized council-owned space.
Which I know what you're talking about. Yep.
With the idea of diversifying and kind of being proactive. For us, we're going to council saying, we're a business that we're winning awards. We're trying to set a new standard in hospitality. Nelson loves food and drink. The council loves having these businesses in town. So what can the council do to support us through this time? Are there spaces that you can get us into? We can move staff so that people aren't losing jobs when times get tough and the road gets closed. So kind of having a proactive long-term approach. And honestly, taking a little bit of risk on is huge. You kind of have to. I think if we close up and we don't welcome in new customers and we don't innovate, we'll slowly die, which no one really wants. You have to kind of look at your business and go, where is there an opportunity to do a little bit better? Yeah.
Now,
it's tough.
Before we pivot to coffee and awards and all that fun stuff, I generally want to say here that I actually believe, sitting here listening to you, every single cafe hospitality business in New Zealand and Australia should listen to this and listen to you. The fact that you've actually only been in business for 3 years, you are speaking with wisdom far beyond where you should be at. So I give you a massive congratulations, and it's just a pleasure. And I say that genuinely, okay?
Thanks, mate. That's too kind.
So,
I think looking at hospitality as a key part of the way we live life, and not like a business that's just transitory. People look at hospitality as like, they take it for granted of like, oh, there's another place opening up down the road, or it's just a bunch of travelers, or it's just students. The reality is, the Europeans kind of tacked onto this years ago. You go to France, the idea of being a maitre d' is highly regarded as a career. And it's this professionalism of like, this is not just an industry for like ma and pa kind of, scraping by. Like, the reality is, we love hospitality. We love eating out. We love meeting with people. So if we can kind of have that approach, and I've been fortunate enough to work with really good people and work for people. And I think if we tap into the wisdom of other people, and not sit on the, because I honestly, I started a business degree and never even got past the first year. I was so bored. Like, I don't have all the skills to do this business. So for me, it's the wisdom I've gained from other people like Michael Press, Danny Mahena, cafe owners I've worked for, Grant and Sherilyn Maxwell, people like Will Gadara. He's based in New York, and he writes this fantastic book called Unreasonable Hospitality. This idea of kind of going above and beyond to make the experience hospitable. Like, stuff like that is critical. And if anyone spends much time with me talking about coffee or cafes, or, if you'd been on a sales trip where I talk to people setting up new sites, I would sound like a broken record because, I always go back to these kind of key phrases, but really, like, it's three key foundations. You've got your atmosphere, you've got your offering, and you've got your service. And if you can nail all three of those to some degree, they don't even have to be perfect, but if you can put some focus on each of those three things, you're onto something. And I think where a lot of people go wrong is they go, oh, we're going to do all the fit out. We've got the atmosphere nailed, and we've got the offering that is so Instagrammable. But then the pillar that is service is not there, and they wonder why people don't come back. So yeah, kind of learning those key things of like, what do we actually need hospitality for, and what do we need it to be, really helps. Anyway, you were saying.
Well, look, as a Kiwi, generally, I know we don't like talking about ourselves, but let's give a shout out to Victus, your company, winner Nelson Business Awards. Is that right?
Yeah, so we actually, I'll champion self promotion. I'll put it on my CV because I don't have a CV anymore. So we've got to do what we can to promote what we do. Right. I think it is terrible that we don't celebrate other people's success very well in New Zealand, and I think we just have an attitude of, oh, just get on with it, mate. Like like, don't stick your head out too far. The reality is New Zealand is full of like these incredible, hardworking people, and we should be kind of more accepting of, let's celebrate. Like, there are way too few reasons to celebrate in life. So, first year we opened. Every 2 years they run the Nelson Hospitality Awards. First year we opened, we were lucky enough to be finalists in a bunch of categories, and then we picked up the best cafe and the best barista award, which was incredible. Then I think it was just last year or earlier. It was earlier this year. They held them again, and we were finalists in I think 5 categories, and we were the winners of best cafe and best barista again, which is awesome.
Congratulations.
And this year we made, which was a huge investment actually for a big team. We decided to take our whole team along to the awards night because for that exact reason, that you've got to find things to celebrate. And, these kind of awards, they're not necessarily judged. It's based on, like, you've got to promote it. But the reality is we're really proud of what we do. We work really hard. One thing that irks me the most is when I meet, and I say this, we've got some amazing friends in the industry locally and people that are really supportive. And like, if I could take a minute to like promote every one of their businesses, I would. But I'll just put that out there. We've got lots of great people running great businesses. Then they all need to be supported. What irks me is when I meet people that say, oh, well, you guys, it's easy for you guys because you're busy, or it's easy for you guys because you're rich. Like, I'm from a family of 10. Like, anything spread 10 ways is, 10 kids. Anything spread 10 ways is nothing. So, we've really had great opportunities and taken them when they've come, and taken the risk, and worked hard to get to where we are. And so, yeah, we took the whole team. We wanted them to feel like it wasn't the Nick and Beth show, especially, with a new baby. We hadn't been as present as we like. We took the whole team out. We had a great night, had a party, and had 2 lovely new shiny awards on the trophy wall in the pool room.
Awesome. Okay, well, the next thing, it's not just there. We talked about barista, and you won an award there, but more recently, I know you've been in a couple of these competitions, but you went to an international barista competition. Tell us about that. I believe Christchurch overseas. That's what sort of held up this podcast. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so I've been in coffee now for about 15 years, on and off. Like, I dabbled in other hobbies and sports and ideas, but I have been in coffee for about 15 years. In the coffee industry, there's a whole range of events. There's an incredible organisation, the Specialty Coffee Association of New Zealand. So specialty coffee is essentially akin to the idea of like craft beer. It's the idea of taking this coffee and doing the best we can with it. Where you would maybe differentiate is commodity coffee. It's just the kind of run-of-the-mill, no care or attention to details paid. So we kind of have always been lucky to work in specialty coffee. earlier this year, we were looking at ways to, I guess, encourage and upskill our staff. And I said to our barista at the time, "Hey, I'm joking. I said I'm going to sign you up for the South Island Barista Awards because I really believe you've got what it takes." And he was like, "Are you sure? Like, I don't feel confident." And I went and I applied. And as I went to do the application, the Specialty Coffee Association, was saying, we actually need more people. These events are getting hard to run. We're running at Christchurch and Auckland, and then just this past weekend they've run the New Zealand Nationals. But it's really hard to convince people to sign up. And I looked at it and I thought, why is that? And then I realized my own attitude 15 years in was, that's for those guys, that's for the others, the ones that are, the ones that are really nerdy or the ones that are really committed. Yeah. And then I looked at myself and I thought, like coffee's like 30% of our whole business. Like we're pretty committed. Like I love this stuff. I could work with it all day and it's my favorite place to be. And so I looked at them and I said, you know what, actually, I probably need to get over my own pride. Because, a lot of it's pride of going, I don't want to show up and be like the old dude who's done it forever and is terrible. So, I actually said to my barista, I said, look, if you go, I'll go. We'll go together. We'll go compete. So, that was the first one. That was the South Island Barista Champs. And that was an amazing experience. It was incredible to kind of, shift the focus away from the intensity of running a business and running a family and running a home and doing all of that kind of normal stuff and going, you know what, I'm going to challenge myself with the hobby part of what I love, the coffee. So I signed up for that. And then I had this cool opportunity to, in the middle of winter, to compete in the South Island V60 Champs. So the V60, there you go.
Oh, well, there we go.
Wearing the t-shirt. The V60 is a very traditional pour over. It's a cone, ground filter coffee, and you pour it. It sounds pretty simple, but it's kind of a staple of specialty coffee. It's how we taste coffee to really define flavour. Espresso is great, but espresso over-intensifies everything.
Compare it to, would that be right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, espresso would be like drinking shot of spirits. And pour over is essentially like drinking wine. You get a lighter, more balanced approach. You've got a bit more time. It's a bit subtler. So the V60 Champs, everyone's using the same coffee. You're competing in a blind taste competition. So really, it's pretty easy to sign up, and the best brew on the night wins, and it's knockout. And I said to Beth, look, I know winter's been tough, and we're just in the pits of it, but I've got this great opportunity to go to Christchurch for one night, 24 hours, see some coffee guys, friends of ours, and take a break. And so I signed up for this competition last minute. I flew down, turned up on the night, was expecting about 10 people, and there were probably 100 people in the room, 30 competitors. And I went through knockout, and I got to the finals, and I was thinking, oh, crikey, I'm in the finals. Like, next minute, and this is against some guys I know who are really the top baristas in Christchurch. The top skill. They're young guns. They're fresh. They know all the terms. They know all the videos online. And then the next minute they said, "You won," and I was kind of thinking, "Crap, what have I won?"
Well done.
So I managed to kind of pull out the big W on the South Island regionals. And for this particular tournament, the winning prize, they had a massive coffee prize pack. There was gear, I think it was like $500 cash, just little things that really help. But then there was a trip to Melbourne. So Australia, New Zealand finals, there was Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, and Christchurch heats. And the five of us that won those heats, we all went to Melbourne, and we had the kind of Anzac finals. Which was incredible. I had to check I actually had a passport still. But yeah, graciously, I kind of said to Beth, it's fine, I won't go to Melbourne, things are busy. And her being the absolute legend that she is, she said, not only will you go, I've booked you in for a whole week so that when you're there, you can actually experience the city, experience the kind of coffee scene, which was cool. So yeah, I flew to Melbourne, managed to compete in the finals, didn't quite get the win, which in hindsight,
The finals, though, come on.
He was very grateful for the winner. Went on to Tokyo to compete in the kind of Japanese final. Yeah. But to be fair, having just sold the house today, I don't think going to Tokyo this week would be on the cards.
No, and maybe she wouldn't be happy with that one.
So yeah, Melbourne was awesome. It was a great chance to actually go, look, I love this industry. I want to reinvest back into the coffee side of it. And I want to prove myself. I talk a big game when it comes to, my passion for coffee. But by actually backing yourself, it comes back to the kind of tall poppy thing. It's easy enough to not promote yourself, but also not put yourself out there and just sit in this kind of mediocre zone. The coffee, the hospitality awards, they're kind of the same thing. You have to put yourself out there to take on these awards. You have to put yourself out there to be recognised. And when, your business is your livelihood, neither of us have any backup career. Neither of us have a backup job. Victus for us is our life. It means that which sustains life or way of living. And so for us, it is that, hospitality is what we're focused on. And we have to take opportunities when they come to kind of, A, better our skills, and B, promote our business.
Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure today. We'll say it again, a big shout out to Beth, who's should be on here with you today as well. And maybe we'll have you both back next time. Secondarily, I actually really hope that if you're in hospitality, you actually listen to this, not once, but twice, because there's some gold that comes out of this. If you're local, if you're having to travel through Nelson, you will find Victus Coffee, some of the best coffee in town, of course, award-winning barista as well. Go, shout out, say hi to Nick, and see what his hospitality is like. And last of all, if someone's in the industry, Nick, I can actually just sit here thinking maybe a company like All Press, big shout out to them, are looking for a CEO. I'll put your name in the hat. So you never know where this goes, but once again, thanks so much. Really good insights, and I just love the fact that you have the values, and you truly live those values and live your business by those values, and by that alone puts you above 90% of those other businesses out here. So I congratulate you for that.
Okay? Yeah, thanks much. That's too kind.
This was Let's Talk Business. I will leave you there, and thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Let's talk small business. I appreciate you tuning in. If you got value, hit subscribe, like, or drop a comment. It spreads the word and might just help another legend get their breakthrough.